and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I have the honor of introducing today's special guest, Van. Van has a lot of wisdom through his inner courage and strength, lessons that he learned from both his mother and his father, instilling skill sets into him that carried him through life's journey. Stick with us because you're going to want to hear how scuba diving changed his life not once, but twice. Well, I'm so excited to have you as a guest, especially because you called out of the blue, and this is an amazing connection. So thank you so much for being willing to, one, reach out, and two, come on and be my special guest for the day.
This is very exciting. Thank you for having me. Your platform it reaches out to a very, very cool group of people, and happy to be here. Share time with you, share time with your platform, and really hope that at the end, some people look at themselves internally a little bit differently.
I love that. And that's kind of my hope too, right? Just sharing the light through the darkness and allowing people to grow and change as humans, because that's what we're meant to do. Well, you have such a cool story. There's no way I could tell it and even try and hype it up. So I'm just going to pass it over to you, let you introduce yourself to our audience, and we'll just jump right in.
Well, good day. My name is Van Tornow. I was born as the youngest of all of my family having the first letter D for their name. So myself, being the youngest, I was named for a poet whose name is William Delavin Perry. Was digging the poetry, and she gave me the first name of Delavin. And when you have a 3-syllable name, of course it gets hacked in half somewhere, and out of the blue clear sky I became known as Van. So I've gone by Van for quite some time, and now when people address me, they call me Van. Ironically, there is a town called Delavin not so far from where I live, so introducing myself as Van has stopped a lot of conversations. But life just happens, and it happens in ways that are inexplicable. And there's a mantra, so to speak, that a single choice has power. And it was a crazy day. It was a crazy, crazy day. I was living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico at the time. I was reflecting on my day. My day consisted of a 2-tank dive in the morning. We dove with turtles in the morning. We drifted, and when I say we drifted, the current of the ocean just kind of flows you down the reef. You don't have to kick. And we call this reef tortugas. And this is because during the dive, you're going to see between 15 and 20 turtles during the dive. And not to mention, when you look down, the fauna of the reef is just coming alive. And our second dive was a dive on a little more shallow reef. And again, you're so up close and personal when you're scuba diving. It's insane. And came back from that dive, and a couple had signed up for what is called Discover Scuba. And this is when you do a remedial course in the swimming pool. You are shown the very, very basics of scuba diving, and you and your instructor can go out and you get the chance to try scuba diving for the first time. And these are people that they've never tried it. And so this courage that they show to sign up for the course, somebody they don't even know is teaching them, and all of a sudden they're on a reef. And instead of being fearful, or instead of just, oh, I got to get to the surface, or no, they are able to relax. And in scuba, you're breathing constantly through a regulator, and you can hear yourself breathe. And as you breathe, your buoyancy is in control. So when you breathe in, you fill your breath with lungs, lungs with breath, and you feel yourself rising. And then when you breathe out, you feel yourself go down. And the scuba unit itself holds you in place. And these students are able to find that balance. And balance and breathing is just so essential to scuba. And I was reflecting on this day, sitting on the beach. Bro, you're a scuba diving instructor in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Boy, you graduated from a high school with 48 students. I wonder what they're doing now and what they would say. And I was left alone in the dive shop. People were coming up requesting information about tours and different things the dive shop offered for people on their holiday. And there was a gentleman that was sitting next to me. And finally, I just said, bro, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to call it Where Are You From? And this way people can have their question answered right quick and know a little bit more about what made this possibility for the only American sitting on a dive shop beach in Playa del Carmen, Mexico can answer. So he asked me, um, Van, you've been sitting here and you've never asked me what I do for a living. And I said, bro, you're on your holiday. Why would you talk about your job? And he said, ironically enough, man, I'm a writer and I write independently and then I submit my articles for publication. Have you ever written anything before? And I said, well, really, I got a degree from school, but those were just, educational papers. They weren't anything personal. And he's like, why don't you give me 50 pages? And I'll go over it with you and, see if this is something we could collaborate on or if this is something you're really capable of. And when I handed him the first 50, he's like, bro, what's going on here? And I said, well, this is kind of my first, few years of growing up and how I grew up. And he's like, fascinating stuff, man. Really, really fascinating stuff. But remember, they're going to want to hear about your scuba diving adventures and the things that you've done in your travels. So he recommended writing two separate books or creating a prologue, so to speak, to kind of give that depth of what happened in my home growing up to this road that led to me becoming a scuba diving instructor and traveling through three out of the top five diving locations in the world. So when I got back to the United States, it was a goal to write the book. And I wrote the book and had some confidence in how it could be beneficial for other people and how a story like mine could maybe be of some form of inspiration. So I reached out to outskirtspress.com and they were kind enough to self-publish my autobiography. One of my mates, Dario, he was kind enough to offer his photo for the cover, and the book was published. It was the behest of the Outskirts Press to publish the prologue and the adventure together as one book, as opposed to asking people to purchase one book and then a second book. So um, the book lends itself to storytelling. I'm not a professional writer, so if you're looking for grammar and comma mistakes, you're going to find them. You're going to find them. But this is essentially where the book lends itself to. And it's a personal memoir that, yeah, everybody has a story, and you can gain inspiration from whomever's story you hear. So this is why I wrote my story.
I love that. And I think that's really important is so many of us go through so many different things in life that lead us to where we are today. And I was sharing with a guest the other day that in my time in the Marine Corps, even though I'm about to have my 10th surgery that is connected to some things that happened while I was in the military, I don't regret it. And it's made me who I am. And it has brought me the life that I have and the family that I have. I'm a firm believer that family isn't just your blood. Family is who you choose to be a part of your life. So I'm grateful so much for everything that's happened in my life because it's led me down to where I am today. And I know that you shared a little bit with me on the phone is that you have you've gone through a lot in your life yourself from living here in America, becoming this adventure diver. And I'm sure you have so many cool stories. I mean, I'm just sitting back imagining what it's like just drifting with turtles. No big deal. I'm literally imagining the Finding Nemo movie, like,
Right.
like, what's up? And just
Sure.
going out there
Sure.
with turtles.
Well, they say that a single brave choice can be very powerful. Um, I learned that at a very young age. My mother battled multiple sclerosis when I was very young. This is in 1975, where technology and medicine wasn't at the apex that we know now. Um, we would see mom fumble with things and she would curse this MS, and we had no idea what she was talking about. Um, but I remember it was very very succinct. My older sister, she had a birthday in December, and it was just before Christmas time. And my mom, she was walking with a cane at the time, and it was impactful because my grandfather had passed away. And I felt so bad for my sister that, she didn't get to celebrate her birthday because everybody was, mourning the loss of my grandfather. And my birthday is actually in May. And within December to May, my mom was in a wheelchair. So she had already displayed courage. She walked out in the world in the early 1970s with 4 children. And she was intent on giving them the best life that she possibly could because my father was undergoing some of his own personal problems. He was a very stoic military man, and he spoke with a very direct voice. He expected you to understand directions the first time he gave them, and there were repercussions if he had to speak a second time. And this had a very direct reflect on my older brothers and the relationship they had with my father and the relationship that my mom had. And she was not about to have us go through that any longer. So she stepped out, bravest woman that'd be able to do that. And when MS became part of our life, she continued to flourish. Um, she was enrolled in school, and we were gifted this van. Um, it had a handle on it that she could brake with and accelerate with. It had a ramp where the doors on the side of the van would just open up and the ramp would come out and it would lower her down and raise her back up. So she was still taking care of us. She was still mom, and her illness did not prevent her from those random hugs. Hey, where my hug at? And she wanted to share a hug with you. And she was always positive. She never looked at herself and played a victim role. She just always encouraged each of us to do our very best. And my older brother, he enrolled in college, and she did not prevent him from doing that. She said, "You live you. And if you believe that this is what is best for you, you go do that." My older brother, he became one of the best athletes in the state of Illinois. Um, he had accolades on football fields. He had accolades on wrestling mats, and it was just very cool to watch him succeed and to meet the friends that he had and the challenges that they put themselves through to be these athletes, and all the while mom is right there on the side cheering him on, and it was amazing. It was amazing. But the illness progressed to a point where another choice had to be made. But my father was still battling his own illnesses. He had remarried, and through our family visits on weekends, his new family became our new family, my new family. And we never referred to any of us by that's my stepsister or that's my stepbrother. It was that's my brother, that's my sister. And relationships made during this time were very, very tight, very, very tight. And apparently, my father had mellowed out a little bit, but not to the point where my mom felt comfortable saying, okay, I feel right sending our children back to you. Um, she had found a lot of comfort in the church. And the church provided for our family in a lot of different ways. My sister and I were in parochial school. We were studying at a Baptist based school where my mother felt it would give us the best opportunity. And after my fourth grade year, the illness had progressed to a point where, again, like I said, this choice had to be made. And she chose to allow my sister to move in with a family from the church. And essentially, fifth grade for myself was spent in foster care with a family from the church as things that were going on behind the scenes were taking place. So this was really the first time I had to experience a transformation. Um, going from my mom and illness, she had to battle with things that children shouldn't be doing for their mom. And when this started becoming a prevalent part of our day, this decision had to be made. And to transform from being a caregiver to being no. Um, it was an experience, and it was a day-to-day kind of thing. And as we transitioned to moving in with my father, it was nuts. My father was not a man of the church at all. His vocabulary reflected that, and he was still very direct. And to go from mom squeezing and hugging and to kind of not even getting a hug, it was different. But where we moved to had one of the very best football programs in the state. We were a small high school, but we we went to the playoffs every year, and we were on the verge of breaking a record for most consecutive playoff appearances by a school. To do that, um, during the summers, the varsity letter winners would invite us to the field to train with them. So, in seventh grade, we would learn how to block. We would learn how to tackle. We would learn how to catch a ball. And then on Friday nights, we would go watch them, and we had that relationship. So we could shout for them and cheer for them. And um, one of our fans, he wasn't able to go to the games anymore. And he and my father were just talking across the fence, and um, they were having a conversation. And conversation turned into sports, and my father had mentioned that I was going to be playing for the Blue Raiders soon, and watch out, watch out. So I remember going into my freshman year of high school, and I got to dress with the varsity players, and So during practice, I had proven to my coaches that, hey, in the unlikely event that I was the fourth person called on during a varsity game, I may be able to contribute. So this was pretty cool. Myself and two other classmates, we were the only freshmen to dress for the varsity games. And you see what these older fellas are doing to make themselves ready for Friday night. And there's something going on behind the scenes that really makes Friday nights in our little hometown a special thing. So, one of my sisters, she had a classmate who was just an amazing player. He signed a Division I football scholarship, which meant he was on television playing football. And he came back. His parents still lived in our little rural small town, and he walked into the gym, and I was the only one in the gym at the time. And he said, "Can I get a spot right quick?" And so I walked over and put my hands on the bar, and I watched him rack like 350 pounds for 5 reps. And it was just, whoa, this is insane. So during our workout, he just talked about, you know, ability, doesn't answer for hard work. And ability can be taken away. And it just had this phenomenal conversation about what it took to be a Division I football player. And my senior year came, and there were different accolades that were earned. And, that idea of training for a goal to be had, it set the tone. It set the tone for a lot of different things. And, these adversities that you can go through familial wise, they can go into that mental state and create an inner strength and a belief within yourself. And when you have an opportunity to see reward from that, it really strikes home very, very deeply. And it strikes home at a very deep level. So it was kind of an unfortunate thing. I wasn't able to take advantage of offered scholarships, different life choices, so to speak, by various different people involved in your world. Will, especially when you're 18 years old, your resources are very, very limited, and you depend on other folks. And one of my very first lessons in life was a family member that had to deal with addiction, and how addiction played a part in my goal coming to a halt, and having to face this idea that, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I just planned on playing football. So you have to make a new choice. And again, we talked before we started how people will cross your path. And when they do, this is a universal connection where when you walk away, both of you are going to be served with higher purpose from this conversation, from this path, so to speak, of connecting. And when I met Jax, it was one of those things. It really was. It was wow. Jax was a whole school hippie. He loved the Grateful Dead. He loved the band Fish. Uh, he was as comfortable in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and a pair of slides as he was dressing up in a coat and tie for a job interview. So um, we just met on a chance connection. And he asked me, "Do you like any kind of camping or outdoor activities?" And I never really done it before, but interested. And he invited me to go camping with him one time. And it was a car camp where you pull up to your campsite and you set up your camp and you camp in front of your car. It was inexplicable. There was something going on around me that I just couldn't put a finger on this pulse that I was feeling. And at the time, I was with a young lady who we shared time together, and I tried sharing with her this connection that I was feeling, and she didn't really encourage it. She didn't want to share it with me, but Jax and I, we continued camping, and every time we went, it was a new challenge. So we went from car camping to camping overnight. And when you camp away from your car, everything that you are going to need, whether it's an overnight or just 2 or 3 days, it's right here on your back, and you're walking to your site. And then they become overnight and 3 night adventures. And we're in the state of Wisconsin, and we go through 4 separate seasons here in Wisconsin. And regardless, this is when you get a call from Jax. Hey, what you got happening? Let's get out there. And I'm like, Jax, there's 6 inches of brand new snow. He's like, well, I got snowshoes for both of us, so go ahead and gear up, and we're gonna go get lost for a little bit. And so again, this is where these ideas of transformation can really become part of your world. You know, transforming through mom's illness and transforming through moving in with dad, and now this transformation that is going on with this vibration, so to speak, of these different camping activities and these various ways of just, wow, this is insane. This just feels inside of me like something I can't put my finger on. And I was out of shape. I was over 300 pounds. Every time we would go out, Jax would inevitably have to stop. Bro, you good? You good? And a couple 10 deep breaths later, we were on the move again. And I just felt like, bro, you can't be holding him up. So I started walking on a treadmill. Um, I started riding a stationary bike in an effort to get this weight off. And eventually that led to the pool. And the first time I was in the pool was a 25-meter pool. And I said, bro, if you can crack off 2 laps without stopping, you're pretty cool. So I did it. And it was just like, wow, this is good, man. This is good. And the next time Jax and I hooked up, we were driving home. And I said, you know, bro, there's a triathlon coming up. And I've been practicing these 3 disciplines, but I don't know, bro, maybe I could do it. And for the next 70 miles coming home, I was making every excuse about why I couldn't do this race. And finally, Jax just said to me, look, adventure rewrites courage, right? And you've shown so much courage as we've gone into these various different camping adventures. But you're at a choice right now. You can choose to do this race with your $150 Air Max cross trainers on instead of having specialty shoes. You can do the race with my mountain bike and my helmet. And no, it's not going to be a skinny tires road bike, but you can do the race. And look, shave your head. You won't have to wear a shower cap in the water. So I did it. And it was insane. It was just insane. The race itself, seeing everybody come into the starting camping blocks where you put your bike and store your equipment and your gear, the camaraderie that was going on before the race, and people that were training and using it as a stepping stone for bigger races. I'm just, bro, you are just, oh my gosh, it was just such a different mind blowing experience. And I was dead, just dead. There was about 300 meters left to go in the running section, which is the last. And I was trying to catch my breath. I had my hands over my head, and I'm like, boy, you can finish this running. You can finish this running. And with about 200 meters left, yeah, I started running and I crossed the finish line running. And again, that single brave choice has power. And the choice to do the race became one of the most powerful feelings that I've ever experienced. It was, it was more bizarre than opening up a newspaper and seeing a photo of yourself in a tackle you made in high school. It was so much different than laying in your tent and just inhaling these different things that Mother Nature is providing you with. And this was personal because when you're training for a race, you're in your mental inner monologue. You're listening to your breathing again, and you're matching your movements to your breathing. And when you become uncomfortable with your breathing, you know to slow down. When you start panting and, okay, take a break, take a break. And your goals are yours. They're not team oriented. So you only have yourself to answer that inner monologue to. And for myself, I just wanted to get better at it. You know what I mean? I wanted to, be able to keep up with Jax when we were in the woods and we were camping and adventuring out into the woods and spending days and weeks at a time in that environment. I just wanted to be open to the vibration, not just getting through to the next check-in point. So, yeah, triathlon made that possible. And the following year, I did the same race, and half an hour came off my time. And for men over 200 pounds, that's the Clydesdale division of the racing categories. And I had won the category of Clydesdale. So, with all the other winners of their different races, I was put up on the little promo that I had won the Clydesdale race. And um, this gentleman came over and he said, "Hey, congratulations on your race." And I was like, "Yeah, thank you." And he said to me, "Do you do any camping? Do you do any kind of adventure stuff outside of triathlon?" And well, yeah, bro, I've got my own equipment. I do weeks at a time, actually. And he's like, "Really? Okay, okay." So this kind of stuck in the back of my brain as to, what was this all about, And um, during that summer, um, it was kind of bizarre because, as we talked about, the universe brings people into your world. And I was a waiter, and this young kid, he makes an order that was just protein packed, and I'm just like writing this stuff down. Like, how is this young fella going to eat all of this food? And when I brought the food out, his mother said, "Oh, yeah, he'll eat that and more. He's one of the top 25 triathletes in the country." And I'm like, "Bro, you live right here in Janesville?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I told him about doing the race and that I had improved my time and, mentioned that we could get together for a race sometime. And he was like, "Yeah, let's make that happen. Let's make that happen." So stuck that in the back pocket. And one of the new fellas that was hired at the restaurant where I was a waiter, um, turns out that he was training for the Trek Super 16 series. This is a sponsored event through Trek where cyclists will use the event to qualify for other upcoming events. And this was nuts because all of a sudden I had this gentleman who was a specialist in triathlon, swimming and running with him, and then going out on these crazy biking adventures with my other friend that was considered probably a professional. So our paths crossed, and wow, I was just given so much information that I had no idea about, no idea about. And it improved everything about racing. And when I was speaking earlier about it being an internal um, kind of goal setting, I had set a goal for myself that maybe I could improve my distances, do an Olympic level triathlon, which is different distances in each of your different disciplines. And my swimming mate, he said, okay, let's see if you can do this in the pool today. And we ventured off for our swim. And I mentioned it to my mate that was a cyclist. And he said, if you can keep up with me today, we'll talk about it. And the next time we got together for a run, um, he's like, you do know that you just did 10 kilometers. And I said, yeah. And he's like, okay, that's your distance for your run in your Olympic distance. And bro, you just cracked off your 25-mile bicycle for your Olympic distance race. My mate had said, you just did 3 kilometers. That's your distance for your Olympic level race. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So I marked the day on the calendar and I got up super early and I went and did the race. And it was an amazing experience. I come home, I'm ready to share it with my lady friend. And again, she shared some things about her past. And these were reasons why my physical accomplishments were of no importance to her. And she felt like if this was going to be my journey, it wasn't one she wanted to be part of. And I couldn't just imagine where this would be going if all of this was cast off to the side. And I was studying finance, and apparently her desire was that we were going to go down this primrose path of the different representatives that I had met during a job fair, different financial brokerage firms, and different banks are at these job hunting fairs. And I was given multiple offers heading into my senior year of college. And it didn't sit well with me. It didn't sit well with this idea that opulence is going to identify me. This idea of what I'm going to be marked as with what I drive. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I'm not buying you a Lexus Coach Edition car on graduation day. That's just not going to happen. And with that, our relationship dissolved. I moved to my city where I was doing my college time at, and moved into my own place. And again, transformation happened. Transformation came in the form of furthering my adventures. The gentleman that I had stuck in my back pocket, he had stayed in touch with me, and he asked me if I would like to join a camping trip with him. And this was a camping trip that involved 4 different disciplines, adding the discipline of kayaking to triathlon training. Triathlon through, instead of swimming in a pool, now you're swimming in a lake. Triathlon training moves from riding on a bicycle on a asphalt road to training on paths that are set aside for cycling paths. Um, Running on trails where you will portage your kayak from where you exit the water to where you're going to run the trail and then drop your kayak off and start running. And these became more and more part of our routine. I remember we were on a trip to Devil's Lake. And when we arrived, there were carabiners set up on one of the walls. And he looked at me and he said, "You ever done this before?" And I was looking up at the top and I'm just like, no. And he's like, "Well, it's pretty simple. If you've ever seen this on television, you know, you see people, they're going to pull up like this." And he's like, "That's not what we're doing here. Um, this carabiner that I've got you linked into, if you fall off, we got you. You're not going to hit the ground. So as you go up, secure your feet and then move." So I got to the top of the wall, and before I could even celebrate making the accomplishment, he comes up behind me and he's like, "All right, this is how we rappel." And so um, you get home after a weekend like this and you're just like, "Oh my God, what was that all about?" You know, and um, this was crazy. And we actually were able to do a 125-mile sprint division echo challenge. There were 6 different disciplines that were involved, and we were able to complete the race. It was triumphant. It really was. It was the hugging, the camaraderie. You know, you're not drinking alcohol, so the dumping of the water all over everyone, and it was simply amazing, simply amazing. And the school year started, and well, it was um, it was a crazy thing because you inevitably find your mentality from your training going over into the other activities of your life. And so I didn't want to just be a waiter. I wanted to be a waiter and was able to make more money just by being a pro. My grade point average was one that would get me into any opportunity that would be waiting for me after school was over. So it was a thing. You know, you work with diligence, you give your best effort, you seek wisdom, you be patient with yourself, you live ethically, and you treat others the way you want to be treated. And this idea of breathing through these adventure races, this breathing pattern, um, it just became like a meditation, so to speak. And it was unde- I couldn't define it. I just couldn't define it. All of my family, they were very evangelical with the church, so to speak. They had so much deep, deep convictions, you know, with the Bible and how they lived their life. But this was something bigger. This was something bigger than any book could write about. And this was what my mother felt, and this is what my mother had to kind of keep her in her world. Um, she was institutionalized when I was 5, and she kept up this bravery in our weekend visits, and she was able to stay strong. So even in spite of the goals and the dreams and the ambitions that I was seeking, I always chose to include her by going to the facility and sharing time with her, and um, letting her see, hey, you know, your little man's doing all right. And during my senior year of college, um, we got a phone call that mom had essentially coded and she was in a coma. Um, she had signed a will. Her will was a fight for life will that instructed all medical professionals to keep her alive in all such cases. So, with all of my family in front of me, we just were dumbfounded. My older brother said, "Hey, this is not how she's going out." And the doctor said, she made that choice for herself a long time ago. And until these machines and her heart, she's going to remain like this. And so, what do you do now? She had professed so much faith in this God that had inspired her and given her such feeling. And what am I supposed to do now when I see her in this condition and this God has taken everything away from her, and yet she remained diligent in her faith. And so, my senior year suffered. And one of my professors, he pulled me aside and he said, what's going on with you? And so I told him about, what had gone on. And he shared with me a story about his father coding after a heart attack while he was doing his degree. And he shared that he had a choice to be made to either accept that he had to do this in order to have the professional life that he wanted for himself, or he could sit back in a world of negativity with what his father was going through. And I had a choice to be made again. And he went to other professors. He said, "Hey, this is what is going on with the kid." And I still kept up these missions to see mom. And mom, she had a couple different verses that she liked to hear, so I would read them. One of her favorites comes from 2 Corinthians. It's therefore we do not lose heart through outwardly we are wasting away, and inwardly we are being renewed day by day. She loved to hear that voice and that verse, and she would voice it all the time. Not to look at me as I'm in this wheelchair or like this. Look at my smile. Look at the joy in my face when I see you. So, going to see mom, training and school filled that senior year, and I had to do 4 credits of physical education. And ironically, scuba diving was offered as a phys ed credit through my school. And I'm like, okay, this could be cool. This could be cool. I had gone skydiving. I jumped out of a plane, and when you jump out of a plane, you're just free falling so fast, and wind is just rushing past you. But I had made nice with my jump pro, and he showed me how we could do barrel rolls, meaning where we could spin during our descent, and it was insane, the feeling of doing them, right? So I get in the pool our first day of scuba diving class, and it was crazy because, as I had mentioned before, your breathing is what controls your buoyancy in scuba. So I was naturally able to find this level of buoyancy control. And it took this free falling feeling of skydiving, and it just put it here and here and here and here. And in our first pool lesson, my instructor, he was actually, if this being his head, was inverted. in the end of the pool. And as he would breathe, he would go up. And as he would exhale, he would sink to the bottom and never hit his head. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. And so I went inverted on the other side. And when I breathed, okay, my fins went up above the surface. But when I exhaled, my head doinked on the bottom. But finally found ourselves in this position where we were breathing together, just going up and down, facing one another. And when we came to the surface, I asked him, bro, can you really make a living doing this? And he said, yeah, yes, you can, but it's not going to be in the United States, bro. And I was like, all right, all right, all right. But we had made a relationship with one another. We got close, and I had talked to him about what it took to become a scuba diving instructor. And he reached out. One of the levels of your certifications is a advanced diver certification, and cause he took me through my advanced level of certification, my rescue diving certification, and the Echo Challenge team wasn't able to stay together after completing the race. But out of the blue clear sky, I get a telephone call from one of my teammates, and he's like, hey, did you get your certifications done for scuba? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you still in the United States? And I said, yeah. And he's like, join me for a dive this weekend. And I was like, cool, yeah. And so I show up, and he's telling me about the dive that we're going to do and the speciality of the dive. And um, with his level of certification and his dive experience, he showed me how two tanks were going to work so that if I ran out of air, we could still complete the dive. Just open the other tank and I'll breathe through the other tank, hold on to his scuba tank, and we'll complete the dive together. So we descend down, and of course, I run out of air, crack the other tank open. We're breathing. Are you good? Yeah, I'm good. And we move on with the dive, and we reach the surface, and we're talking about the way that we can make improvements for the second dive. Maybe I had on too much weight, maybe, but out of nowhere, we hear Captain prepare the boat. The dive master is bringing up an unconscious, unbreathing diver. So he said to us, hey, we're going to go to the side of the boat. Okay. Um, so as we're sitting, floating next to the boat, the dive master comes to the surface with this diver, and the captain takes over and pulls him on top of the boat. The dive master says, I need to go down and alert the other divers to surface. So essentially, the captain was left alone. And I had mentioned to my mate that I had just completed my emergency action plan and my rescue diver certification. And he asked, is it current? And I said, yes, it is. And I jumped on the boat, started getting my gear off, and I said, Captain, my name is Van. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. I'm a rescue diver trained as an EMT specialist, so how can I help you? And he said, I got to alert the emergency staff uh, on the ground. So back at the beach, if you will. So he initiated the emergency action plan. A number of the divers that were doing the dive that day were actually police officers. They were firemen who had just got together for a dive in the afternoon. So they took over, and it was kind of at that moment that at any time, this thing that, you found so much gratification in, it turn can turn dark very, very quick. So that was my first engagement with something that can go wrong in scuba. Now, I completed school. I was all set, and I announced to my family that I'm moving to the Keys. I spoke with Cos, and he said, down south of Miami are the Florida Keys. They're still part of the U.S. You don't need a passport, and it's ocean diving. So started doing some research, and I found that there was a camping uh, site, a camping park, just across the 7 Mile Bridge in Marathon. So I had made this plan for myself that I was going to go and camp in my tent until I completed my dive master certification. And it was a 7 mile ride across the 7 Mile Bridge, both to and from. But at that point, I was like, there's nothing about me. I can do this. I can do this. And um, I had gone and I had made my amends with mom, and I had let her know that this is what my plan was. And that, after she had sent my brothers to do their hopes and dreams, that she would definitely be cool with me parting at this point in time. So I remember I was scheduled to leave, and one of my nieces came down and she's like, Unc, why are you leaving us, and why are you doing this? And is it true that you're going to live in your tent? So just for her sake, I unpacked everything and I showed her what it was going to be used for and how I was going to use it. And this is what I have to keep me safe, so don't worry. And I remember getting this really cold chill as I packed everything away. And I woke up and ready to head to the terminal, and there was my brother-in-law. And he said, "You're going to need to sit down." And my mother had passed away overnight. And for myself, I was just kind of thankful. I thought to myself, this was her way of knowing that all four children had grown into adulthood, that her four children were following the beat of their own heart. And okay, go do this, young man. Go do this. And so this is how it started. 1 week later, I found myself on a Greyhound bus bound for the Florida Keys.
That's amazing. Like I'm hearing your story and just thinking about how like reflecting on my own life, like you were saying, being on the beach that day and just kind of reflecting on life and how much my mother showed a lot of strength in her time with me growing up as well, and just that mother's love connection and that courage and how much that instilled so much into you and built your inner strength. I tell people all the time, we're stronger than we think we are. And we never know how strong we have to be until we're in that moment. And your mother's story is such a beautiful story of that, right? Who said, I'm going to take care of my kids and I'm going to fight for this and I'm going to fight for life. And what a beautiful reassurance to say, like, this is the right direction. I can feel that on a personal level with my husband. So I don't know if I shared this with you before, but my husband's in a wheelchair. He's nonverbal. It stemmed from brain cancer. So seeing that inner strength that even he has, and that mental strength, right? The mindset to keep pushing and keep carrying on. I'm sure just hearing your story, you contribute a lot of that to what you learned from your mother when I'm sure she wasn't intending to teach you, right? I know that's how I feel with my mom, like her strength. It wasn't something that she was purposely teaching me, but it's what she did ultimately teach me, was to be strong and to push forward, even amongst all of the life and the darkness that gets thrown our way.
Sure. As I mentioned, my father was a very stoic man. And, from, that side of balance, so to speak, he was as integral to say, that your inner strength matches your strength in your legs. Your inner strength matches, and he would remind me of, the inner strength that resides within all of us. If you search for it, if you look for it, it is there. And his thing was about consistency. His thing was about, don't say you're going to do it, show me you're going to do it. So this was just kind of one of those things that I kind of adopted for myself, was stay consistent. Stay consistent, show up, and do your very best. And this echoed. This echoed through all of the adventure racing that was done. This echoed through getting a degree. Um, and really, it just kind of, as you said, it you have both of those sides of the coin showing you their worth and their value, and one doesn't know the other is doing it. So it's just like you said, this outward there that, how, it just rings true through you. And with her passing, and like you had mentioned, it's kind of like a freedom, and it's almost like a bird just flies out of your chest, so to speak. And when you exhale, it's almost like you can feel your chest bone touch your backbone, and it's just it's a true feeling. It really is. And for myself, getting on that bus that morning had a lot different vibration than it would have had it happened a week before. So I'm very, very grateful that the universe waited, so to speak, to unlock this odyssey that became life. I moved to the Keys. It was 2 days and a wake up, so to speak. 2 nights on the bus, and arrived in Marathon. And I remembered that scene from Top Gun where Maverick's on his motorcycle and he's pumping his fist at the F-14s. And God, that's how I felt. My camping gear was tied to my bike ever so securely, the way it was during races. My backpack was on my back with everything that I needed to camp with, and my overnight bag was on my chest, and I'm ready to go. And I mounted my trek and arrived at the dive center just a little bit later, and they had this really cool nurse shark in the aquarium when I stepped in, and it was just like that. Oh my God, I'm here. I'm here. And they gave me a night overnight at the hotel so that I could clean up after being on the road. And yeah, the next day I got on my bike, I cycled across the bridge and went into the campsite, and it was amazing. It was just to reflect on the fact that, wow, you're here. And this became the start of things, so to speak. I still had some courses to do to earn my instructor certification. So riding back and forth across the bridge and back, I was able to support myself by spearfishing. One of the gentlemen that worked at the dive center, before he would come into work, he would take his boat around and he would go spearfishing and would offer his catch to the restaurants located around the island. And the restaurant owners would just come up and they would hand us bills for mahi mahi, bills for snapper, and bills for grouper, and they would serve it fresh in their restaurants in the evening. And he asked me to go one time, and he said, today we're going to dive the bridge. And this is the 7 Mile bridge that goes across from Marathon into your trip to Key West. And diving the bridge is only 25 feet deep. So you have just insane bottom time. And you put your back against the pylon. And you sit on your knees and you just kind of watch. And these fish are everywhere because you have the stream of the Atlantic Ocean and the stream of the Gulf of Mexico mixing, and there's plankton everywhere, and the fish just, they're eating mouth wide open, and lobsters are enormous, but these are lobsters with antennae, so you eat the tail, not the claw. So you get a couple lobsters in your bag, and then with your spear gun, you start spear fishing, but all of a sudden you're watching bull sharks. They come in and they tag stingrays that are trying to hide in the sand, and you're like, whoa, did you just see that? And you can't say anything. You can't say anything. You just turn and you're bright-eyed towards one another. And um, this is how I was able to get through my dive master course and my instructor course. Doing my coursework during the day, going fishing in the morning, and then I got a job later as a bartender. This was a tiki hut, and when I say a tiki hut, this was a palapa built from the leaves of palm trees, and it was just a cozy little nook right on the side of the Atlantic side of the ocean. So it was just spectacular for people could ride up in their boats. People could walk from their hotels. And it was a schwanky kind of joint where, you had wood top tables and a mahogany bar. You had uh, cocktails and drinks from all parts of the world. So it was cool. And my instructor certification went by pretty quick. Um, I was able to meet some of the very coolest people that I could have ever met. Um, Most of them were employed in jobs that were either service industry, but a couple worked for the Dolphin Research Center, which is located in Alamorada, between Alamorada and Marathon. Um, and they were very, very cool people. They worked in the rehabilitation of dolphins and how the different research could be used from their facility. They weren't SeaWorld by any stretch of the imagination. Um, so got a phone call one night, and it was one of my mates, and they had over 100 dolphins stranded on the beach. Um, there was a full moon, and the lead dolphin, unfortunately, had got lost. And so when I had arrived, there were people just scurrying to get the dolphin back in the water. And once they were in the water, they were, able to swim off and do their thing. But the amazing experience was incredible. And, having a relationship like that with somebody else that can relate to this, and you can share a heartbeat over this, and you don't get those deadbeat eyes back at you. You don't get that condescending joke that takes away from the experience. Um, it was amazing. It truly was. And then you couple that with um, diving the ocean and having this first opportunity to really be in an ocean. And the ocean is salt water, so it's alive. It penetrates you. And as you descend, pressurization happens. And so this ocean feeling, it becomes one with you. And your breathing takes over, and now you're at comfort with the ocean. And now instead of the lakes and streams of Wisconsin, I'm diving on Sombrero Lighthouse. And this is an eco sanctuary where there's nothing allowed but snorkeling and diving. So there's no fishing, there's no kind of taking anything from the reef. It's a sanctuary. And that's exactly what it was. And this is the first experience that I had really doing ocean diving. And it was amazing. It really was. And from diving on reefs, I was able to experience diving on wrecks. Um, we had a specialized wreck dive that we would take advanced level divers and experienced level divers to. So this was my opportunity to teach diving at depth and learn what to expect when you reach 100 feet in depth and the pressurization changes that occur at 100 feet in depth. And so, yeah, it was a time to learn and yet at the same time become a pro. And we were hanging out at my apartment one day, and the mailman arrived, and my passport was there. So you talk about a house full of dudes just jumping around, hugging and chest bumping. Bro, where you gonna go? Bro, this is that. And bro, if you go here, and it was crazy. I mean, it was nuts. All of us were bounding and giggling, trying to figure out where I was gonna go. And so um, finally, one of my mates comes up and he puts a blindfold over my eyes, and you can hear all of this shuffling and chatter and all of this going on. And um, one of them comes over and he stands me up, and I feel a dart go in my hand, like a throwing dart from a bar. And I throw the dart, right? Somebody yells, throw it! And when it stuck, I took the bandana off, and on this side of the wall was the Virgin Islands, with St. Kitts and St. Bart's and St. Thomas. And on this side was the Caribbean. And the Caribbean had the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica. And so it daggered in Nassau, Nassau of the Bahamas. And it was like, bro, you're going to the Bahamas. So it it turned into, all right, I'll go check it out. I'll see what happens. And it was nuts to think that I was making a living scuba diving in the Florida Keys. It was just dumbfounding, and so going to the Bahamas, I went directly to the top dive center in the Bahamas. They specialized in shark diving. They specialized in movie producing and things of that type. But when I had arrived, they made mention that we don't really hire expatriates. And this is a word that is used abroad for people that are not from where you are. You're not from the Bahamas. You're an expatriate. So got invited to go diving and hung out with the shark dive. It was very cool, but I wasn't offered a job, and I went to New Providence Island, that is just on the other side of Nassau. And this is schwank to the nth degree. I mean, this is where your wealthiest people from around the world. And I'm just like, I'm an instructor from abroad. I would really like the opportunity to live here and work for you. And it was just one of those universal things. They needed an instructor. I needed a job. And I went back home. I packed my gear, and I was in Nassau. And the dive center put me up at a hotel called the Atlantis Hotel and Casino. And at this time, this is the early 2000s, and wow, this was a hotel. And so I was put up in a room there for the night, and went into the dive center, and it was just pro. I mean, everything you could imagine about a dive center. We had matching uniforms for greeting customers. We had matching uniforms for wearing on the boat. We had brand new gear, from masks and regulators and scuba units and weight belts and wetsuits and fins, you name it. And when I had arrived, the administrator of the dive shop, he was from Canada. So we were the only expats on the dock, and living in the Bahamas, we were the only white people working on the dock. And so where are you from became a natural question for me to listen and answer every day. And the day-to-day in the Bahamas was insane. It really was. We were privy to a very opulent group of people, but at the same time, it had to remain professional. You were a dive pro. You conducted yourself as a dive pro. And it it was it was super cool. It really was. The men that I worked with, the women I worked with, they carried themselves with the same level of professionalism. Um, it would be the equivalent of any office that you would want to put in to any kind of workaday life here in the United States. Um, from the Bahamas, I had my first run-in with immigration. Um, I couldn't work for 10 weeks as my immigration paperwork was being stowed. And when I moved to the Cayman Islands, I was actually put in jail overnight for arriving on the island with a one-way ticket. So this was my first group with immigration. Moving to Cancun, I actually had to do a class in Spanish for the immigration representative, and was hired to be a staff instructor. Now, being a staff instructor, you are working as a professor at a dive college. So when people sign up to become an instructor, they can go to a career development center and do all of their certifications from one to the next. And when you arrive at your instructor development course, you're taught by staff instructors, and this is essentially the job that I was hired to do. And arriving to Cancun, this was not the job that was offered. I had spent 10 weeks living in what is called a hostel. This is shared living, where you, for myself, I lived in a hostel that had bunk beds. So you shared an entire room. For me, it was 5 bunk beds, and you had a trunk at the end of the beds, and one was for the person on the bottom, the other was for the person on the top. So I lived like this for over 10 weeks. And when my paperwork was finally processed, this wasn't the job. And I had met a young lady while I was going through all of this. Um, she worked for Apple Vacations, and she was fluent in Italian, she was fluent in English, and of course, Spanish as well. So she made mention that that Playa del Carmen might be a cool match because I was already packing my gear. She came in, she's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm heading to Belize. There's a bus that's leaving tomorrow morning. I'm getting on the bus, and I'm not staying here for any longer. I'm going to Belize." And well, try Playa del Carmen first. And when we got there, this was just this sleepy little village of people from Mayan backgrounds, people who were um, still very, very engaged in the rituals and the lifestyle that their ancestors had, you know, made part of their culture long ago. And we decided to move there together, and found a job working at another dive marina there in Playa del Carmen. My mates, one was from Canada and the other was from Argentina. And our dive clientele came from everywhere around the world. Everywhere around the world was showing up to Playa del Carmen. And there were various different things that brought people to Playa. There was ruins in Tulum that were Mayan ruins. It would be the same as going to see the Sphinx in Egypt. Chichen Itza, a very stoic pyramid with Mayan history. You can go and visit this again, like visiting the pyramids, so to speak. So, not to mention a dive package in Playa del Carmen would send you diving with turtles, diving with wrecks, diving with sharks, not to mention doing a wall dive over in Cancun. But unlike anything that I had ever experienced before, you could dive the cenotes, and these are underground caves where you have stalactites and stalagmites that are growing over centuries of time. And it's incredible to guide and lead people through these different kinds of dive packages that are offered. And you watch people go from nervousness and maybe a little bit of staring at the ground. What have I signed myself up to the pros that, you know, show up in their own gear and they've done XYZ amount of dives and they're just there to, you know, increase their dive profiles and visit different diving places. So it was very cool. It was a very cool vibration. My mates from Playa del Carmen, they had engaged in martial arts, jujitsu, and kempo. I had flirted starting doing martial arts in the Cayman Islands. And one of the girls who was a photographer for my boat, she said that she was going to a yoga class. And I'm like, cool, I'm down for it. And did my first yoga class. And it just kind of became a regular thing. And moving to Playa del Carmen and meeting these fellas outside of the ocean, we went to the dojo. We would do martial arts one night, we would do yoga another night, and then we would meet for a meditation, and life just progressed. And we started doing things and making progress towards taking over the dive shop. And I wanted to do the technical service of the dive shop, where I would show technical diving to the different guests and students that wanted to learn about going beyond 120 feet, which is the recreational dive limit. So we had a free day, a day that will live in infamy, if you will. I was doing my dive to qualify for the instructor development course portion and the portion to be the deep dive tech as well. So deep dive instructor. To do the dive itself requires safety stops, where you are going to essentially stop. You're going to allow your body to adapt to the pressurization, and then you're slowly going to continue to surface. So on this particular dive, I had 5 safety stops scheduled for doing a dive to 200 feet. Essentially, every 50 feet, I would be stopping to allow my body to go through the pressurization changes. Coming up, I saw a diver who was by himself. There was no other diver around him. Visibility in Playa del Carmen would be up to 45 feet. So you have a lot of room to see if this gentleman actually did have a dive partner, and there wasn't one around. So I asked him to show me his air. His air gauge said he had about 20 seconds. He was just about out of air. And I had a decision to make right there. And as we talked about before, choice has power. And my choice that day was between share air and skip your safety stops. You didn't plan for this. You didn't plan for this being part of your profile today. You didn't plan to share air. So the other choice was, if you don't share air, this kid's going to die on the bottom floor of the ocean. And you will never, ever be able to enter the ocean again knowing that you let somebody die on its floor. And I handed him my ultimate rig, and the two of us began breathing together. And unfortunately, as a result of that dive, I had developed serious problems. I was teaching a course in the swimming pool. I went underwater in the swimming pool, and when I woke up, it was 2 days later, and I had no idea where the 2 days had gone. Doctors in Cancun, um, they wrote it up as being possible sunstroke, possible heat related, but never brought up the idea that I could have had a seizure as a result of an embolism. The reality of that came about a year and a half later, 2 years later. Um, I took a year. I taught school at a private English speaking school in Playa del Carmen, and then returned to the dive center. So I went out in the water with my students. I took a compass reading to the reef, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the intensive care unit. I had a seizure 25 feet underwater. My students thought that I was doing an out of air exercise as part of their course. They recognized that there was a problem. They made sure a boat stopped, and I was able to be taken directly to the hospital. Um, so as a result, my diving career came to an end. And um, that's when the conversation with my mate on the beach came to fruition. Um, Bro, if you don't have anything else to do, maybe write the book, and maybe you're able to inspire people. Um, Maybe you can continue teaching in a classroom and working as a teacher in the United States. And through life happening, neither of these were able to come to fruition. I had multiple grand mal seizures. I had multiple focal seizures. And as a result, medications had to be taken to resolve my symptoms, take care of these blackouts that were happening. And until recently, um, time stood still, getting these medications ironed out, getting the body to respond properly. And in all the while, still finding grace within myself, knowing that these opportunities were no longer part of what my reality is. They're no longer part of goal setting. So I had to really go back to that transformative idea of what can you focus on now? And my focus became just essentially making the most of the moment, making the most of the day. And it took me back to those times when I would be doing yoga. The instructor would say, breathe. The times that I would be underwater and I could hear myself breathing. And each day coming back to the breath, each day being motivated to get the very, very best of each and every of being consistent, my mother's voice of showing love, showing balance. It's amazing. It truly is, because I don't get lost in the what could have been. I don't get lost in the what should have been. I don't get lost in the what can be or what's going to happen. I get lost in today of breathing through any kind of a thought that would take away from me becoming the best me that I can be. From me just being able to exist in the universe and just be. And when you let go of everything, your ego about the goals you're making for the future, your ego about goals that you had sent and not came to fruition as you had planned for them to. Today is amazing. And this is where speaking with people like yourself, opening up to a platform such as this, um, it lets people a relationship with somebody else who may have gone through a similar experience. Courage isn't found with watching somebody do a shark dive for the first time. Courage is found through listening to other people and allowing their story to be the embodiment of what courage truly is. And that's sitting in this present moment, listening to them, not bloviating or talking about yourself and diatribing about your own personal experiences. That's what people can read the book for. That's what people can read magazine articles for and things that I've done on that kind of level. But the present moment, this is truly amazing. This is truly amazing. And sharing it with you right now, and hopefully people can understand that there's more to being successful. There are going to be obstacles. And if you are like water, you can flow through those obstacles and you can embrace yourself and your inner being to be that guide. Water is an amazing thing, and you can become fire from the sun, and you can give a glow and you can give a warmth to other people through your actions. And you can be that breeze, that comfort where you just give a compliment and watch a response from just giving a compliment. And these day-to-day moments that are the true realm of what life really is. And you'll find support in some of the rarest of circumstances. And again, people come together by a universal path. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me to cross paths with your listeners today and allowing this opportunity of a conversation between two people that really didn't know each other at all to cross paths and really make this real.
Well, I'm so glad that you reached out, and it's so crazy. We were talking about how many different things that we can connect over, even though we haven't got to meet. You know, you just called me one day, and I absolutely love your story. I can't wait to get your book and read it to hear more about your wonderful insight. And I think that's something that's just so beautiful, is the peace that you have and the strength that you have to live every day in the day is something I think a lot of people either want to strive after or need to strive after in this fast-paced world that we're living. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to share a lot of your personal story and share these nuggets of wisdom and insight through all of life's journey, because I say that we can't have the sun without the moon. So there's always going to be darkness, but it's finding the light in those moments and really embracing them and enjoying them no matter what the darkness brings. So I'm so again grateful that we were brought together and you were able to come share your story with all of us. And we'll definitely have links in the description below on how to connect with you, and especially get a copy of your book to learn more and grow more through your experiences. Again, I want to thank you for your time and your willingness to come on and share your story and hopefully inspire and change the lives of so many people.
That's the goal. That's the dream. Just inspiration. Letting people know that they can accomplish anything, regardless of how bizarre it might be. It's within them. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.